Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we'll start the Avodah Zarah daf Mem Zayin. We are going to begin on Mem Zayin about Aleph, about 8 lines from the top. So, Boy Reish Lakish. Reish Lakish asks the following question: Hamishtachva ledekel. If a person bows down to a date palm tree, which of course is for the sake of Avodah Zarah, lulavu mahu mitzvah. Can you use its branches for a lulav for sukkahs? Now, be'ilan shenatu mitchila lakach lo tiboilach. If we're dealing with a tree in which was specifically planted for the sake of Avodah Zarah, so then it's not a question. It's definitely going to be usher. Diafil hedit nami usher, because since it was planted for that purpose, for Avodah Zarah, it can't even be used lehedyet, certainly not for a mitzvah. So kiti boilach beilun shenotam b'seif avdu. Let's say you have a tree that was planted for its own purposes, and only later on was it worshipped. That's the question. Now, can you use its branches for a mitzvah? Now, v'libed Rabbi Yosi Rabbi Yehuda lo tiboilach. According to Rabbi Yosi Rabbi Yehuda, it's not a kasha. They feel hedid nami aser, because he holds that even in that situation, even though Elon was planted stam, and then only afterwards for Avodah Zarah, he would still hold that it's aser even for a hedid. So according to him, certainly you can't use it for a lulav. Ki tiboyach libd rabbanan. According to the rabbanan, they do mater lehedyet in the case of an Elon shenatal b'seif avdu. Now, in mitzvah mind, the question is, according to the sheet of the rabbanan, are you allowed to use its branches for a lulav? Mi moyes klapi gavoya olo. The question is it repulsive, the fact that you're doing a mitzvah with a tree in which we did Avodah Zarah? Kiyos Rabdimi Oimer, Bashera Shabitul Kimaboyle. Actually, we're talking about an Asherah tree, an Avodah Zarah tree, in which it was batal, the Akam was mavatalit, to say, I no longer wish this to have any connection to Avodah Zarah. So the question is, since it's no longer an Asherah, yesh dichet to mitzvahs, o ein dichet to mitzvahs. Is it permanently disqualified for the use of a mitzvah or not? So the question is, do we hold yesh dichet to mitzvahs? So it's actually a kasha brought to Masech the Sukkah, and we bring down the same piece. Tivshli midit nan. Kisahu, let's say you covered up the dam of the, which is the mitzvah kisei dam, but it's gala, and then all of a sudden it gets revealed. So patim l'chasis, you no longer have to cover it again, you did it, and that's it. However, let's say kiso haruach, let's say the wind is what initially covered it up. You didn't do the kisei hadam yourself, but rather the wind caused it to get covered. So, and then it got uncovered in chayv l'chasos because you didn't actually do it. The whole issue is only if it got revealed. If it remained covered, that's fine. Now, maybe it's a mitzvah that for you to do the kisei hadam, to cover the dam yourself, but it was covered up by the ruach, and therefore that's it. You can keep it that way. Understand? Understand, once it gets revealed, what's the problem? Why don't we say that since basically the mitzvah was done, it's over, so we shouldn't have to do it again? So it must be because we hold ein dichet mitzvahs. So it's a raya. This is a proof. So this is actually his question. Is it true that he holds it's always this rule? It doesn't matter if you're going lenient or strict. Because over here, so the question is, are we going to be machmir to cover it up or not? So we say, if it got uncovered, we should go strict and cover it again. However, when it comes to this, using the branches for a lulav, then that's actually a kula. and we're not going to maybe apply ein dicha to mitzvahs, and therefore perhaps it's not allowed. So that is the kasha. Question 13. Boy Rish Lakish. Hamishtach v'ledekel v'ulavu mahu mitzvah be'ez oifin mayri hiboya u'maha safek. So one shot is we're talking about the ilon shenatul b'seif abdu, according to the Rabbanan, that for a head it's mutter, the kasha is it mayis, is it repulsive because for the sake of a mitzvah? Alternatively, we're talking about an Asherah tree that there was bittul, and the kasha is, do we say yeshei tzil mitzvahs chomra or ein dichel mitzvahs even afilu lekula? Okay, and that we end off with a teku. So boy rapapa. Now we have another question. Hamishtachvel behema. So a person. So look at Rashi. Loshna lekula can gabi Asherah shabatul lemeheder leshturi level of mitzvah. Fine. Loshna lechomra can gabi kisa mechayev lemeheder lechasi. They have to recover it. Okay. So Rapap asks the kasha. Let's say a person bows down to an animal. So are you allowed to use its wool for the mitzvah of tchelas? And Rashi says, so tchelas demai. Eat tchelas to kohanim, because the garments of the kohen, for the sake of the avodah, require tchelas. So hainu boidra de Rami bar Chama. Well, Chayra, this is the same kasha of Rami bar Chama, which we said in the previous daf, whether or not makshiri carbon is carbon, regarding the stones of a mountain, are you allowed to use that to build a mizbech? V'itchelos tzitzis, if we're talking about tchelos tzitzis, handed boy to Reish Lakish, again, whether yesh dichei tzol mitzvahs, regarding a tree, a deck, which you used for Avodah Zarah, and the question is, can you use the branches for a little sukkahs for a mitzvah? So, enachanami. You didn't really have to ask that question, because we could have inferred it from these other questions. The reason why he asked it here, because he actually had another question. What is the din of the wool for tchelas? So that I guess we could have figured out. But then he had other kashas. Can you use their horns for the trumpets for the shear of a carbon? Because we learned that the cholil, the flute, which is also brought to the last paragraph of the sukkah, is a shear which is ma'akev as the carbon. Or shoikeho mahu l'chilulin, again, can use its thighs as a flute. B'nei me'ah, its innards, mahu l'fa'oidis, can use them for harp strings. So libidol l'madi yomer ikar shir b'kli. The question is, there's musical instruments, but they also sang. So what is the ikar? So if you hold ikar shir b'kli, the main part is the musical instruments. That we definitely will not allow, because that's repulsive. So therefore the instruments are not really vital, and therefore it's not necessarily considered to be repulsive. And therefore, since the main thing is the voices, but sumi kalba almahu umaisinan, all you're doing is like making the voices sound a little bit nicer as there's a musical accompaniment. O dilma fil hachi aser teku. Maybe we're strict still. So again, we have another kasha. Boy Rabbi. Now Rabbi posed a different question. Let's say a person bows down to a spring of water. So meim of mahu l'nesachim. Can you use its water for the for nisach hamayim, for the water libation? So my koma boy, what's the kasha? Ilema was it that he was bowing to his image in the water? O dilma lamaya katsagid, or maybe he's bowing down to the water. So v'tiboile safal hedget. You could ask the same question. Let's say have a bucket of water. That would also be the same question. So oila lamaya katsagid. Really, he's bowing down to the water. This is the kasha. Is he bowing down to the water that's in front of him? And therefore, kamoi azdu, and it's flowing, so therefore that water is gone. Therefore, the water now in front of us is mutter. Dilma, or perhaps it's with the Bruna, the Mayakatsogid. Maybe it's the whole flowing of the river that he is bowing down to. Where it says umi mystery, would that taka be aser? You can't aser water that belongs to the public. It's flowing from his own land. So the question is he only bowing to the water in front of him, so the other water is mutter, as he is bowing to the current, and therefore all, or do we say he's bowing down to the current, and therefore all the water is aser? So that's the another kasha that we don't have an answer to. Let's see the next Mishnah. It says the Masnis, Mishoyo Besu Somach. Let's say you have a house in which you're sharing an adjacent wall with an idol worshiper. The nuffle, now the wall fell down. So also live nicer. You can't just rebuild it, because by doing that, you're allowing the idol, the house of Avodah Zarah, to get getting hana from them, and vice versa. So so what should you do? You actually have to build within 4 almos, so you have to basically lose 4 almos and build there. So this way, it's basically your own wall on your own property. You're disconnecting yourself from them. Okay. Let's say we're dealing with the thickness, or half of it's yours, half of it's theirs, as we continue Memzayim Beis. So on this, the Mishnah says, Nida and Mechsa. We say everything is split halfway. Avodah of Eitz of Afro, Metamin Kesheretz. However, when it comes to everything that comes from that wall, it's stone, it's wood, it's earth, it's considered Tami Kesheretz. Shnemer Shakas Shaksanu, says Rashi, Afil Chelkoi, even your portion, because you can't say Yesh Brera, what stone is yours, what stone is theirs. So therefore it becomes problematic. Rabbi Kiva Eimer Kenida, it actually has a higher level of Tuma, like a Nida Shenemer Tizarim Kamodava. Say. So you should go out. Tarmelo Mani the Matama Bamasa, Favaskachama Matama Bamasa. So there's a higher level of Toma that even Bamasa, even carrying it, is a din Toma. Says Gemara. I don't understand. How do we allow you to build this wall in that way? So basically what you do is you have that extra Daled Amos as a bathroom. So you need modesty there. It's a nighttime bathroom when no one's around. That you should relieve yourself at night as though the same way you would do it during the day, even though there's no one around. So therefore that should make a difference. Even though you're relieving yourself in the normal fashion, you still have to be modest. So how do we understand this? So it says the avidle with tinaikis, it's done for children. You have all these different branches all around, so therefore because of that, it can be used without any issue. Let's see, Rashi. Right, okay. So let's look at question 14. So you should put it within Daled Amos, and you can use that extra space as a basic kisei for children, which they don't have the same dinim of sneas. Or you should put hizmi v'higi, you should all these branches all around for modesty. Let's see the next Mishnah. Says the Masnisin, Shloisha Batim Hein. So there's 3 houses, if you will. 3 dinim of houses. Bias Shabanu Metchilos Chacham. Let's say you have a house that was initially built for idol worship. So Harizah Aser. So we say straight that such a house is completely Aser. Says Rashi, the Chol Habayis Habi Avodas Chachamim. The house is considered like Avodah Zarah itself. The Im Avodas Chachamim Banu Aser Ad Shibat Lenu Shitutz Mimenu Ksas. They have to like break it apart. Okay. Second type of house, it's Sidu V'Kidu. Let's say you plastered it. L'Avodas Chachamim for idol worship. The Chidesh, and you have additions to the house. So Noitel Mashachidish. So just take down whatever you added. Says Rashi, Im Bo Yisrael Levatloi. If a Yisrael wants to mevatel this Avodah Zarah, Noitel Mashachidish Umoter Habayas. The house would be mutter if he takes down all the additions for Avodah Zarah. And the Gemara is going to say, as Rashi quotes a few lines down, Kegoin Shul Neved Habayas Me'oilim. That's obviously not a house where they actually didn't do the Avodah Zarah, but they fixed it up for the sake of eventually using it for Avodah Zarah, because if it was for Avodah Zarah, they would fall in the first category, that the whole thing would be Aser. And then lastly, Hichnas L'Soich Avodas Chachamim, if all person did was brought an idol into the house, all you do is get the Avodah Zarah out of the house, and then everything's mutter. Says Gemara, Omer Rav, Hamishtach L'Abayis, when a person bows down to the house, Aser. Al Meksaver Tolish Sh'Musayv Chibru Ketolish Dami. It sounds like if it was detached and then it became a chover, it has the same thing, it's Tolish, therefore it's Aser. I understand. But non-Banu. But it was built for that purpose. So how do we understand that? So Tanan Banu. Afal Pi Shlo Hishtachavalo, even though he didn't bow down to it, Hishtachavalo Afal Yishlo Banu. It's us either way. Yachi Hani Shloish Arbahavi, it's 4 cases. Kivandil Inin Bittul Banu Hishtachavachad Kachashavle. Because regarding to Bittul, it's considered to be like the same thing. Okay. See another similar Mishnah. It says in my system, there's 3 stat categories of stones. Even shechatzba metchila lebimus. So you have a stone that was quarried initially as a platform, harizah surah. So in that situation, it is completely aser. Saida v'kaida, again, you plastered it. So not should say v'kaid b'teres. Just remove whatever it was, and then it becomes mutter. Lastly, you put Avodah Zarah on the stone, but silkum, once it's removed, harizim mutaras. Says the Gemara, Amravami, but who should see the kid begufa shel evan? This is referring to as plastered into the stone itself. In other words, it was applied to the grooves of the stone. I have a haduma to bias tanan. Ubayas alav begufahu umitzter. So understand, if it's like a house, but it's not like the that's like actually in the stones. So bias nami ika beni urvi. So no, it could be talking about also inside. Mil askin, can't we be talking about a house? Deshaya v'hadashia, that you plastered it, then you plastered it again. And therefore, it's considered like it was like engraved inside. The Avgad that side the kaid begufa shel evan, even though you plastered it into the stone, kinoto, when you remove it, mashachidish shaper dami. Whatever you removed, that's it. Now it's fine. There's the tema kiman should say v'chayid begufa shel evan. You would think that since it was actually engraved into the stone, ke'evan shechatzba matchil v'os kachavim. Dami. Maybe it has the same status as a stone which is quarried for the sake of Avodah Zarah, which is just always aser. So v'titzer kule, and you would think it's completely aser, and therefore you would need to mevatel the whole thing, or the Yisrael can't be mevatel it. Kamash malan. The chiddush is that it's fine. Okay. Question TA. Obviously, we're going to stop there. TA 29. Hamishtachvel behema karneha malu chatzaitzus. What's the din with its horns? So it's really just the teku, but what does it say over here? Oh, umandi aimer ikar shira bekli aser. Umandi aimer ikar shira bepeh. Then it's iboy the lev shita. So again, when it comes to this is TA29. So it was a whole slew of questions, but karneho mal chatzaitzris. So again, if you hold ikar shears bekli, then it's definitely aser. But if it's ikar shears bepeh, so then it's a boy the lev shata. Okay, fine, and that's it for that. TB1. Hamishtachla behema karneha mal chatzaitzris. This is the exact same question. So we put this over here, TB1. And im ikar shir bekli lo kashas is an usher. Hashe'elu im savar ikar shir bepeh lafi ze yesh teku. Ad kan.